Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon and our continued coverage of Massive Darkness 2 and the hero classes contained there within. Today we are going to be talking about the final core box class, and that is the Wizard. The Wizard has a fairly simple setup. You just need this kind of rondelle here. It's their spell amulet, and you're basically going to be taking your skill cards and placing them into one of these 4 slots around the board, and then you are able to fire off those spells, whichever one this direction is pointing to. So let's first talk about how you go about utilizing the spells for the Wizard. Then we'll talk about skills, and then we'll take a look at the 3 wizards currently in the game. So at the beginning of the game, you can the board is set up this way, where all the words are facing you and they're each kind of at a diagonal. But I've actually found that if you tip it this way and you put your skill cards in like this, that they're all then facing you once you get going. Just a little tip for me. But anyways, we'll face it the right way for now. At the beginning of the game, you're going to choose one skill card. Let's just say we choose Fire Course 1. You're going to choose one skill to cover up. So obviously the standard choice would be to take an attack spell and cover up your basic attack action. All right, but you could put it right here. You could put it right here, anywhere you want. This would also be a viable one where it's in combat, you can get a reroll. Either way, you're going to take your skill card here, you're going to place it over one slot, and then you get to choose which quadrant this wand is pointing to. So it doesn't have to be where your skill card was placed. It can be anywhere you want. Then, when it is your turn as the Wizard, whatever spell the wand is pointing to is what you can utilize on your turn as one of your actions. Now, you do not have to only use your spells. For example, this one down here is a spend 1 mana to move 1. That's not your only movement. You can still take a standard move action. You can still take a standard attack action. And just roll your basic dice that are on your weapon card. But if you want to utilize the spells of the Wizard, which is kind of their thing, their spells is where they're going to become the most powerful in, you get to use the one that the wand is pointing to. Now, in this instance, you would want to take an attack action and then spend 2 mana to get 2 automatic hits and then give the defender a fire flame token. If, however, let's say you started like this, all right, and you take your first action, you're going to go ahead and use this. You're going to spend 1 mana to use the attack. After you use a spell, all right, you get to turn the thing, and it always goes clockwise. You'll notice these arrows here. The thing can only go clockwise. It can never go counterclockwise. All right, so now your first action, you used an attack action. You spent your 1 mana. You gained the additional automatic success. Now you're in a position to heal. Well, let's just say nobody needs healing. This is, heal 3, so doesn't have to be self. But if nobody needs healing, but you don't want to waste the mana to heal 3, you can spend a single mana to rotate this. So that's, the basic thing you need to remember, that this rotates every time you use a spell that it's pointing to, or you can rotate it 1 turn or 1 quadrant for 1 mana. So you could essentially, if you had enough mana, you could fire off Fire Course 1, it would rotate here, and then you could spend 1, 2, 3 more mana to get back to Fire Course 1. That probably wouldn't be the best use of your mana, but it is a possibility. Spending a mana to rotate this does not cost you an action. It's a free action. Just like spending 2 mana to heal 3 is a free action. This one here, if you want to move and take a standard move action, you would go ahead and take a move action, gain 2 MP, and do it that way. But this one here, if you just are one space away, one field away, you can spend a mana to boop, but your arrow has to be pointing to this one, and if you want to utilize that throughout the game, you can't cover it up. So consider that every time you get a new skill, it has to go on to your amulet somewhere, and so you have to cover up something. All right? Now, let's take a look at the Wizard's skill cards. The level 1 skill cards, and I'm going to say this, the Wizard, so far, I feel like gives me the best options where I really could choose any skill. I feel like some of the other classes, I probably am going to pick like the same skills every time. It's still fun to play with the varying classes, but the Wizard, I feel like I like all the skill cards. There's not one or two that I'm like, I'm probably always going to skip that one. So let's take a look at these here. You've got the Fire one. All right, the Fire one obviously is, giving you consistent hits and putting a flame token on the defender. You also have this one here that's, dark magic. It's like being the martyr. You take wounds, but then you deal wounds, and it's to any enemy in the dungeon. So, this could be handy early on, but most wizards do not have a high health count, but you can also, if you have the mana, always just heal right back up again. So this is handy because, you can hit anybody, anywhere. You don't have to have line of sight on them. And the last one here is more like a buff that you would place on yourself or any hero in line of sight. Basically gives them an additional defense die and then puts, gives an ice token to a frost token to the attacker. So they lose an action their next turn. And then the level 3s and 5s are all basically, upgrades of that. So here you can see this is the defender takes 2 flame tokens. Here your defense goes up to 2 dice. And here you can put 3 wounds on 2 different enemies. And then jumping all the way up to level 5, we are 3 automatic hits, 2 flame tokens. This one here is 2 dice, 2 defense dice, ignoring 2 slashes, and placing a frost token. And this one is 5 wounds to any 2 different enemies in the dungeon. So that is like usually taking out at least 1 minion or a good half of like at least a level 1 or level 2 roaming monster or something like that. That's pretty powerful. But again, you're getting this at level 5, so the roaming monsters are probably going to be at least level 3 or 4. All right, but let's look at some of these level 2 and level 4 spells that I am quite fond of. All right, this one here is really nice because generally you need to use, in order to use a spell, I should have mentioned this earlier, you need to, for the attack actions, you need to use a magical weapon. So that would be one of the ones that has, this symbol right here, the little wand with the star on the end. All right, so generally the wizards you're going to give them this one of the starting magical weapons, and you're only going to have them keep magical weapons. But if you get battle wizard, you can use a melee weapon as a wand weapon. You still have to be at range 0, but you're also getting an additional die. So whatever, you go through and you find whatever loot, and that loot is a nice melee weapon, not only can you use it with your attack spells, but you also get to add a die, which is really nice. And so all of a sudden, your wizard here, who's got some pretty potent spells, is all of a sudden this badass, like, sword-wielding wizard who's just, like, slicing people up like a Jedi. But this one is my favorite. Time Walk. All right, Time Walk here, as you can see, 3 mana. So it's a little pricey, but I mean, let's look at Mathrin here. He has 6 base mana, and it's only going to go up from there. 3 mana, choose any hero to immediately perform a free action. And this does not cost an action, right? There is no word action in front of it. There is no word attack, spend 3 mana. This is free. If you have the mana to spend, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten so close with an individual who's in the middle of a mob and they're just like one dice roll away from taking out that leader, or, you know, taking out 2 minions or something like that, so the attack back on them isn't as bad. Something like that. And I'm sure all of you have had that same situation, that you get so close but you run out of actions and then it becomes the enemy turn and you're just going to sit there and get pounded on. The upgrade for Battle Wizard 2 here basically just gives you the opportunity to roll the orange die if you want. Now remember that the yellow die, you know, is going to give you more opportunities to gain mana back, which you may want for the wizard, so don't always just jump on the orange die. But then this right here, 5 mana, again, it's pricey, but Time Walk 2 at level 4, if you have the mana stored up, not only do you get 3 actions as a wizard, so you could take 3 basic attack actions. You don't have to buff it with anything, so it wouldn't cost you any mana. Matherin here can take an action to gain 3 mana. 5 mana allows any two other heroes to immediately perform a free action. Now, this obviously is only useful if you're playing with 3 or more heroes. As of yet, I've mainly been playing either single hero or 2 heroes, 2-handed, so I haven't actually used that skill yet, but if you're playing in a group, I think that's a pretty cool skill. Alright, those are the skills. Those are just some of my opinions. And remember that as you are putting stuff down here, you know, obviously Fire Course 1, if you're going to go Fire Course 2, you're just going to replace it. But you could technically, there's nothing in the rules that says you can't, you could start off with Fire Course 1 here, and you could really like these basic spells, and you could take Battle Wizard level 1 and cover that up. There's nothing saying you can't do that. I don't know whether that would be a viable strategy, but again, you get to choose where your skill goes, except you can't have like 2 fire courses. You can't have Fire Course, at least I don't think so. I'll need to look into that. I'm curious as to whether or not, see, this just works so much better if you're like this, in my opinion. Anyways, I'll have to look into that. I don't think you can. I'm pretty sure in the rule book it states that to get to level 2, you just have to have the level 1 and you replace it. I'm pretty sure you can do it, but it would be interesting to do with the wizard, since the wizard has like 4 slots that you can put it into. Anyways, let's take a look at, we actually get 3 wizards between the core box and our Darkbringer pack, and we have Matherin here, who is our core box wizard. He's the standard wizard, very straightforward. Special ability here, spend an action, gain 3 mana, which is really useful for what we were just looking at. And then his shadow ability allows you to pick any spell and take that action for free, or you may use any attack spell on the amulet for free and do not rotate the marker. I don't know whether maybe you want to move the marker, but you don't. Alright, Ego here, he is our true martyr wizard, similar to, you know, he fits nicely in with the dark magic here. You see he has a pretty decent amount of health compared to at least Matherin here. 2 more health, but only 1 less mana. Anyways, he can take wounds and gain mana, and you can see this does not take an action. So if he needs a mana here or there, he just has to take a wound to do so. And then his shadow ability almost is the exact opposite. You deal 2 wounds and heal 2 to yourself, so he's like sucking the life out of people. So I haven't played with him yet, but definitely seems like there's an interesting setup that you could create with this particular wizard. And then we have Valdis here. She was one of the last unlocks, I think, if not the very last unlock of the campaign. And she's another one of these kind of combo character classes here, because she can, similar to how you have, she's kind of the opposite of, where's my Battle Wizard? She's kind of the opposite of Battle Wizard here that can use melee as a magical weapon. She can use ranged as a magical weapon. And so she can actually use these attack spells at a full range as long as she has line of sight. Now it has to be a range of 1 or more. Normally your magical weapons can be used in your same space. So she definitely needs to keep her distance. But you can see here, it is really nicely stacked. Like compared to Mathrin, she's got 6 mana but 1 extra health. Anyways, she has the ability, now it's only on her shadow die roll, so you're not going to see this as much, but she can draw and discard 2 arrow cards, gaining mana for each arrow revealed this way. Now, in the last video we talked about a paladin who used the rogue bag of tricks and could pull tokens out of the bag to get additional actions. And it was noted that if you did pull out of the rogue bag, you just left them discarded until the bag was reshuffled. These, however, the arrow cards, if you draw arrow cards to gain mana, you actually will shuffle them back into the arrow deck. It really doesn't matter as much if you're not playing with a ranger character, but if you are playing with a ranger character, it does matter somewhat because, you know, if you're drawing out arrow cards, then the ranger class character almost is like a card counter in Vegas. They're trying to remember, you know, figure out, okay, how many 2 arrow cards have come out, how many 4 arrow cards have come out. So you would be able to see that. I don't know necessarily why they did it this way and not the way that the paladin rogue character works, but just so you know, that's how it works. And again, this only happens on their shadow ability, but if you happen to play with Valdis, make sure you pull out the arrow card. All right, and that's our 3 wizards that we have for the game. So that's going to do it for our core box of characters. We have covered the wizard, the paladin, the rogue, the shaman, the ranger, and the berserker. So coming up next, we are going to start touching on the expansion classes. So we're going to take a look at the bard, the tinkerer, the druid, the necromancer, and the monk. I don't believe I am forgetting anybody. Let's take a look at some of these other cards here. No, I think that's all of them. If I've forgotten one, I apologize, but I'll see it on my shelf and we will get to it eventually. Anyways, if you're enjoying this series, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.